right. So, hey, we're the Cola guys. I'm David,
And I'm George.
and we are joined today by our representative from Statehouse, Representative Nathan Ballentine. Nathan, welcome.
Hey, happy to be here, guys. Looking forward to it today.
Awesome. Well,
This episode is brought to you by Dick Dyer Mercedes-Benz, the first Mercedes-Benz in South Carolina.
George and I both have kind of gotten to know you a little bit, both as a real estate industry professional as well as in your role as House Representative. So we look forward to talking with you today about both of those things. So why don't we start off, Nathan? Give us a little background on yourself and maybe how you got into the real estate industry and a little bit about how that either did or did not play a role into leading you into state politics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thanks guys for having me here. I appreciate all your viewers out there who check in on y'all regularly. Y'all are great guys to work with in the real estate side, and certainly here in the community in Irmo Chapin. David, you're a big dog over there at the chamber, and George, everybody knows you. So it's no surprise how successful y'all are working with your clients, whether you're listing or showing them around and finding them a home. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I graduated from Carolina here in 1992. I was born and raised in the state. After graduating Carolina, I moved out here in the community, was heavily involved in things, and I worked for Wells Fargo. Well, at the time, it was South Carolina National Bank, which later became Wachovia and then later became Wells Fargo. But long story short, I was on the retail side of the bank. And so I helped manage there was probably 26 retail branches in Columbia, bank branches. You walk in, do your deposits, buy car loans, things like that. But my boss knew that I wanted to be involved in politics. And he said, you need to be out in the market instead of sitting here in the ivory tower on the 17th floor. So I went over to the mortgage side back in 2001, I believe. Started, just originating, things like that. And then during that time in 2003, I decided I was going to run for office. And God's blessed me. I've been able to juggle both jobs. I love it when people remember my paying job more over here at Movement Mortgage now, where I joined about 9 years ago after 20 plus years at Wells Fargo. So that's how I got in this role, and I'm passionate about both things.
And that's something that makes South Carolina politics a little bit unique, though, is that it's not a full-time job working in the State House. It is part-time. Do you see it ever becoming a full-time for the state representatives, or do you think it will stay part-time for here on out?
No, I think it'll stay part-time. There's always a discussion on the pay over there because, and it's no surprise, you can go look it up. 10,000, I think it's 10,400 is what we get paid. And many would argue that needs to be higher because you can't get a vast variety of people that can work there. Many of the people I work with over there in the House and Senate are either retired or attorneys or run their own businesses. I'm fortunate that the bank gave me permission to do this. And again, my job, as y'all's job as well in real estate, is 24/7. So I might be on the floor of the House and we might be in the middle of a debate, but if work comes up, I'm going to grab that phone. We're in session a couple of days a week for a couple of months, the first part of the year. We joke it's not part-time and it's not full-time. It's all the time. So, today I've had a couple of calls already about streetlights, potholes, what we're going to do next session with energy, things like that. And at the same time, we're pre-approving people to go buy houses that y'all are showing them. Even though people think rates are high, it's all relative, So I don't think we'll ever go full-time.
We get that question. I'm sure you get that question a lot just because of the amount of issues and things that come up in front of the State House these days. But put on your mortgage broker hat for us a little bit. We've had 2 rate cuts now, 0.5% and just 0.25% the other day, and rates really haven't moved that much. Talk to us a little bit about what you see going on with that and kind of where maybe you see things going into the spring so that our buyers can be thinking about that.
Sure. Well, there's a term called recency bias. And most recently for the past month, ever since the Fed started cutting rates, mortgage rates have gone the opposite way. And that's hard for people who are not in the industry and they don't understand. They think when you mention a 0.5 point cut, they think mortgage rates are going to half, and they don't understand that's a different kind of rate, short-term kind of stuff, Fed funds and things like that. Rates generally it's already baked into what the mortgage rate is. So it's an anticipation. So the markets and the treasuries, they knew or had a good feeling what the feds were going to do. So rates were better before they made that announcement than after. So it's really hard to educate people. And then everybody's always skeptical. I get it too. If I wasn't in the business, I'd be like, wait a minute, Nathan, you're trying to pull one over on me. What I want people to understand, and this, I've been in the business for so long. There was a time back in the day where certain companies, loan officers doing mortgages, the rate might have been 5%, and they're out there selling 5.5% because they were actually, I guess, making more money for themselves. When Dodd-Frank Act came along, that all went away. So the mortgage officers, we want to give you the best rate we can. And nowadays, with how competitive it is, when every borrower's family is important, we want to go as low as we can. There is no incentive for us to pad it anymore. By law, we cannot do that and make additional money. So, the advice I give people, and David, it's real easy when you're not the one having to move or needing to move and so forth, but you can't focus on the rate because those are going to change. I tell people, look, when you buy a stock, do you go back and, the stock's going to go up, it's going to go down. You just got to feel comfortable with what you did and realize eventually long-term, it's going to be okay. Y'all know this better than anybody. Real estate prices, that's where everybody's getting generational wealth. You buy that asset, it's been going up and up and up. And if you want to wait till rates come down and then you want to sell, you're going to get less for your home. And then if you're a buyer, there's going to be more people out there flooding to buy, and you're going to have to suddenly pay more for that. So I just tell people, look, the days of 2% and 3%, which were just historically lows during COVID, which was obviously just something that the world's never experienced before, that ain't coming around anytime soon. Just get a rate you're comfortable with. And I could ramble about rates all day because people, that's like a pride thing. You'll be at a cocktail party or reception and people start talking mortgage rates. They don't understand that, hey, maybe your rate's higher, but maybe you're not paying private mortgage insurance. Or maybe you got an interest only loan or some other feature that they didn't get. So rate it and everything. We really just, frankly, we want people to focus on the payment because that's what they need to be concerned about with their family budget.
Yeah. So real quick too, Nathan, talk about Movement Mortgage. Because there are, there seem to be as many mortgage brokers as there are real estate agents out there these days. What makes Movement different from anybody else?
Well, the main thing I would say is our culture and our mission statement. We love and value people. David and George, it's just like y'all. Anybody can have a realtor, or not anybody. You got to get a license and things like that. But it's the relationships and the professionalism and the experience you bring. But more importantly, what's on the inside and the value of, hey, when I'm working with George, here's who I'm working with. When I'm working with David, I trust this guy, and here's what David is about. I'm just not a transaction to him. At Movement, we're privately owned. We've been around since 2004. Our owner actually used to play football for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Charlotte Panthers, or Carolina Panthers, excuse me. He never talks about that. He's an ordained minister. He talks about things like that. He founded the company because back, as y'all remember, back in 2004, the mortgage industry was just imploding. If you've seen the movie The Big Short, there was a lot of bad stuff going on. It was a rough time in real estate, and a lot of shady things were happening in the financial industry. So our owner, Casey, decided that, look, I'm going to open up a company and we're going to do it right. That was 16 years ago. We're in 50 states now. We're a top 10 national lender, and we love and value people, and we're a very faith-based organization. But what I'll tell you, the main difference between us, one, being privately owned, but two, 50% of our profits. And it's been a rough year, obviously, rough couple of years in the mortgage business. You see a lot of people going out of business. But what we do is we set aside our 50% of our profits, and we do things like not just give back, $10,000 checks in all these communities throughout the year and things like that. We have opened public charter schools, tuition free, and we do it in the neediest of areas where 90 to 95% of the scholars, that's what we call the students, are on free and reduced lunch, where 65% of them live below the poverty line, and 10 to 15% of them are in the foster care system. And so currently Movement has 6 schools. One of them just opened up here in South Carolina in Charleston, and we got 5 in North Carolina. We also do things like mission trips, and we encourage, I've been on 5 or 6 myself to Latin America many times. And we encourage our employees to go, and we actually give scholarships to help pay for that. So we like to say we do more than mortgages. So at the end of the day, if a borrower's, they're working with y'all, and somebody, Rocket Mortgage or somebody might have a 6% rate, and we might have a 6% rate or 6 1/8. people generally will be like, you know what, I don't mind spending that extra, whatever it is a month, because I know what I'm contributing to. And we'll let our customers and our agents know that. We're like, hey, because of this transaction, you've provided 12 backpacks to scholars at the Charleston School. You've helped 3 employees go on a mission trip, things of that nature. So it's just the culture of giving back and not being about the bottom line. Profits matter, but we don't have investors or shareholders that we have to worry about. We just want to make the world a better place.
And kind of segueing now into the political side of your work, you're constantly making the world a better place through the mortgage industry, but then at the same time, you're having to give back constantly through the state house your time, because what you're getting paid, really, it's a full-time job you're working in. You're getting paid peanuts for the work you're doing. So we're very grateful for that. But could you talk a little bit about the top priorities going into the 2025 legislative session and what y'all are hoping to accomplish?
Well, we ironically enough, everybody knows we just had national elections and local elections, and so later this week we'll have a luncheon where we'll get together. Excuse me, Republicans. I'm a Republican. I tell people I'm conservative. I'm not crazy, but we'll get together for lunch and we'll start to map out the plan. And I'm still hearing from constituents, which is that's how I do it. Frankly, when I ran for office, some of the things that we're going to tackle this year, I didn't run on energy policy or tuition mitigation or liquor liability reform, things like that. I just ran on clean government, ethics, on the record voting, more transparency, watching our dollars, not having hidden earmarks in the budget. I wanted to expose those, and now it's a public system process where you can see it. So, instead of coming in there with here's what I want to do, I always come in there with here's what Chapin and Irmo is interested in. And if there's other things that line up with that I can help throughout the state, I will. I touched on a few of them. One thing, George and David, I hear whenever I'm at chamber meetings or at church or, it used to be the ball fields, but my kids are older now. They're college age. But people are asking me, they're like, hey, what are we doing with that $1.8 billion that we can't find? I am not on that study committee. I've served on several study committees. Frankly, I told the speaker, I said, look, I don't need any more study committees unless we're going to do something. I don't need resume stuffers. But I think that study committee is going to recommend and figure out what happened. I'll tell you guys, George, David, the taxpayers that are watching, that money, unless it was designated to go somewhere, it's y'all's money. We need to give that back. And I don't know how in the world 1.8 is just laying around, but I know in the times like this with groceries and gas, people could certainly use some money. Liquor liability, it's not sexy. A lot of people are like, Nathan, why are we talking about liquor? You might have noticed that different restaurants are closing down and some bars. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the long story short is the insurance to keep a bar open. And we're talking, I'm not talking like a late night honky tonk kind of thing. I'm talking like a happy hour, maybe not like a Ruby Tuesdays, but something along those lines. Those people are going out of business because they can't afford the insurance coverage. There's few insurance covered companies in South Carolina, and premiums have really skyrocketed. And it's in part, everybody likes to bash attorneys. I don't want to get on that train, but we got a lot of attorneys in the General Assembly, and they've got it set up that way. So lawsuits are what's keeping that liquor liability high. We're going to have to look at that. Two things that are important. A lot of people, especially right here, a dad with 2 in college, is tuition mitigation. I've worked my way up. I've been in office 20 years, and I'm on the budget committee, and I chair the higher education subcommittee. And it basically funds all the colleges and universities, the public ones throughout the state. And so we were fortunate for the past 6 years, they've not raised in-state tuition. So I want to make sure that we continue to have that relationship and make that work. And then another thing that I know we're going to hear about is energy. People, we just take for granted. George, David, I plug in my laptop, it works. I turn on my lights, it works. There was a time 2 years ago when we had a storm over Christmas break, and were the schools in session instead of not in session, we would have had more brownouts and rolling brownouts because that's how much energy was being used compared to what we have in the state. So we've got to figure out something, here locally in the Midlands where y'all mainly serve clients. I know y'all can work all over the place, but here in the Midlands, remember we had VC Summer and that fiasco a couple of years, that set us back. We were really hoping that would be up and running and would provide more energy, because South Carolina, with the policies that we have, with the real estate, the lakes, the rivers, the oceans, the mountains, people are moving here. And so we've got to be able to provide not only energy for that, but for the businesses that are coming. Everybody wants to move for South Carolina, particularly retirees. That's why y'all are staying so busy. I know y'all work with everybody. Y'all get business people coming in town and retirees and downsizes and first-time home buyers. But South Carolina is a happening place to be, and I'm happy to live here and love being a representative for a small part of the area out here at Lake Murray.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned. First of all, I want to say thank you for the 20 years. I know that start of the 2025 session marks your 20th year in office. And I, really just have to say thank you for taking that much time out of your life to give to this. But it speaks volumes of your attitude towards public service. But two things you just brought up. One of them is I was walking out of our coffee talk this morning. The mayor of Irmo said, make sure you talk to him about liquor liability insurance.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So
tell him I did.
I will mention that to him when I see him later because they're seeing restaurants in the town of Irmo, and we're seeing restaurants that are members of the Chamber of Commerce over there struggle with that cost because it just has skyrocketed exponentially for them.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm getting in the weeds, but I'm gonna preview how this debate is going to shape up and how we got where we are. Long story short is years ago, I think it was a law enforcement, a policeman or whatever, ended up being killed one night. And whoever killed him, the drunk driver or whatever, wherever he was, they weren't insured. And so there was basically no money to pay. There was nothing there for the families as far as, not that you can ever bring a life back, but you know what I mean? There was no financial things there. So all the attorneys got together and said, hey, well, maybe that place didn't have insurance, but he was at these 4 other places during the night. They should be held responsible. Well, you can understand that argument. I mean, if somebody comes in and has 1 beer here, and then they come over here and have 15 beers, well, who should really be responsible? But the way South Carolina laws is, they're going to go and get the money however they can, because back then when that episode happened, there was no money for the family. So here's what's going to happen, and I'm giving you a preview in 2 years when we have primaries. And y'all, we can talk about primaries. My consultant has always said, political consultants in South Carolina can make a choir boy look like a crack addict. I mean, that's just how politics can be. But what you're going to have is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, different organizations, family groups and things like that are going to say, hey, you can't change this law, blah, blah. You'll be leaving. Look at this example of this family who lost somebody and wouldn't have had anything. So there's going to have to be some tough votes. I always tell my colleagues, I go, look, I've been blessed to be here 20 years. I didn't plan on being here 20 years. I don't know how long I'll be here, but it's not my seat. It's not their seat. It's the people's seat. So I remember when I voted for the cigarette tax, everybody was giving me a hard time. I said, y'all, if I lose office because I was trying to prevent cancer and some health issues that we know there are concerns, and we were 50th state in the country, if that gets me booted out of office, I'll sleep well at night. And heck, you know what? I'll be focused more on my paying job.
Well, and I want to let George get a question in here, but you talked on energy as well. And our incoming chairman for the Irmo Chamber of Commerce next year is Billy Chastain, who works with Dominion. And Billy just has mentioned a couple of times that there has got to be, development in the production of energy because we are growing so fast here in the Midlands. And then you've got all this new industry coming in as well on top of that. So, what are some of the things that you see the State House doing to work with energy producers like Dominion to give them the ability, to build new facilities, regardless of the type of energy it may be? And by that, I mean, is it solar? Is it nuclear? Is it gas-fired plants, coal-fired plants?
Yeah, the easy answer is it's all of the above. If you ask Billy or ask members of the General Assembly, I've kind of been pegged the solar guy, because I help push for them for some things that we've done just to explore some alternatives. I know that's not the answer for everything. We have to have a good mix, a good stable mix. Keller's had me over there out to Dominion. I don't know if the public can go see. I guess you could. I don't know, but their command center, it'll just stress you out watching the load, how it goes up and down, and how the peaks and the valleys. And they do, and up Mid Carolina, Santee Cooper, all the co-ops, they've got to have the power there 24/7. Like I said, we just take for granted. Imagine, y'all remember when Helene came by?
Yeah.
People, and we had it bad, but we had an inconvenience. It was devastating in North Carolina. But I can remember people complaining, and some people, they were out without power for 4 hours. And I'm like, well, I get it. I had to throw my stuff out of the fridge. I was out for 3 days, but we can't have that stuff happen in normal times. So, we've looked through the years, we've got the Public Service Commission, the Office of Regulatory Staff, and other people. There's the Conservation Voters of South Carolina. They've given me a Green Tie Award before for some of the causes I do. Back in the day, I tell them again, I'm conservative. I'm not crazy. I'm a Republican, and I'm not like a tree hugger and this, that, and the other. But I do like the outdoors, and I understand I'm open to some of these things. And so it's interesting when I first started, helping with solar and explore those avenues. Everybody kind of thought I was crazy from my party. Now more Republicans are on board, and I think we understand we got to figure this out together. We've got to give them the ability, and people need to trust us. The VC Summer thing really set us back because it made me not trust over there as well, and I don't want to get all in the details. It's been in the paper. Some people have been prosecuted and gone to jail over that kind of stuff. Had that not happened, the way it was set up, it should have worked. We should have been able to get that facility up and running. Dominion would have been able to get the money all along instead of waiting and then everybody's bills skyrocketed. I don't have the definite answer, but there are some plants that are looking to come on board. There are some plants that we're going to, I guess you call them the expire. I don't know the technical term. And so we're going to have to replace those. Obviously, I mentioned the lakes, the rivers and the ocean. One of the many reasons besides jobs that people are moving and asking y'all to find them houses in state. We've got to protect them, but at the same time, there should be a fine balance and understand that, hey, look, we need energy, and if that means this creek needs to be diverted this way, or we have to do some mitigation. Let's make sure we do it correctly and best for the environment as well. But we are going to have to make a change because the greater good is we've got to be able to turn on our lights when we need them.
Sure. And all of that has a cost, and the energy you had talked about within the school districts, if it had happened while schools were in session about 2 Christmases ago, how schools may not have been able to have the power. But do you have any certain priorities, or does the State House have priorities for this upcoming session when it comes to a budget? And what different elements of it do they think are more crucial than others to address?
Yeah, George, great question. For those that don't know, the vast majority of our budget is education and healthcare. I mean, if you put those two together, that's basically like 70% of our budget. So that's obviously where the focus is. You heard me talk a little bit about tuition mitigation. I want to make sure that our colleges are taking care of the students that are in state first. I get it. Everybody wants to be the best, and they want to bring in the best and brightest from out of state. What bothers me is I'm fine bringing them in, but they leave us. But the people that stay here, the Georges of the world who grew up here and went to high school here and go to college locally, that's the guys that we want to make sure buy a house here and stay in this area. So we're going to do our best to keep tuition down. One thing I'll tell you with the budget, I haven't seen numbers yet. They're always flexible. We always get accused, and before I got in office, I was the same way. Hey, those guys, they spend every dime they get. Well, it's because we have to balance. And if you call putting money into savings and reserves and tax relief, if you call that spending, well, yes, we do spend it. But as far as allocating it versus putting it aside for taxpayers, we don't spend it all. We set aside, and I don't have the numbers, but it's billions over the past 20 years that I've been in office in tax savings and tax relief, and then just contingency reserve funds. And that's why our state is doing so well and people are coming here, y'all, is because of the policies. I mean, we've got like a piggy bank, a savings. Heck, we got 1.8 billion we can't find, but we are structurally sound. So God forbid a pandemic or something catastrophic like that, or a Great Depression comes, we'll be in better spots than we were. I've only had a few years where we've had to cut in state government, and that is not fun at all. It's one thing when there's a lot of money there and people are fighting over it. It's another thing when government has to do like you and I and everybody have probably been doing the past couple of years. You have to cut back. Where do you cut back? Do I know you cut back on maybe we don't go to the movies as much. You cut back on maybe we're eating sandwiches at home a little bit more instead of going out, and then all that has repercussions for the economy. So we have been very conservative in our budget. And one thing I'll share, and we haven't gotten in the weeds on this, there's been, every party has a little segment of it. You got the far right and the far left, but for the most part, Republicans and Democrats have been coming together, at least on a budget, to pass something, because that's frankly the one job that we're sent to do. Unlike Washington, we balance, so that's a good thing. So we don't have deficits and stuff like that. We also haven't had any bond bills lately. We haven't been borrowing on a credit card for the state government because we've been managing it ourselves well. And Democrats have been supporting the budget. We're overwhelmingly Republican in the House and in the Senate. But I've got Democratic colleagues who are there that you might think they vote a certain way, but you might find out they actually are voting differently, and they're a little bit more conservative than you thought on fiscal issues.
So you do one of the things when I landed here in Columbia, I met you and former Representative Chip Huggins, was incredibly impressed at how much you get out and engage the public. I mean, it seemed like every time I turn around, you were, and Chip was with you a lot of times, and you guys were always talking and listening. So tell us a little bit about, why you think that's so important, and why it seems like you go above and beyond to engage the public, in the area that you serve.
Well, first, I mean, a plug to my desk mate, my leader, Representative Huggins. That guy, nobody does it better than he does. I still, if I need somebody's number, he's got it. He'll text me a couple of times a week. Hey, Nathan, I saw so-and-so at Lizard's Thicket. I told him you'd help him with so-and-so. So that guy's a machine. Nobody can live up to what he's done, and he's certainly doing great things over at the university. I guess when I first ran for office, and I was fortunate that I won that first race and have continued since. My consultant said, look, you can campaign for a couple months a year, or you can campaign year round, and it's much easier if you do it year round. He said, plus it helps you do your job better if you stay in touch more often. So I'm not as active as I used to be at the ball fields because I don't have kids that age anymore, but I used to always be out there all the time. But people, you'll see me around town and events and things. And the reason why is because that's the eyes and ears. I'm out here doing mortgages. I'm working with great realtors like George and you. And so I'm focused on that. So there might be things, when we've got, a development coming to town, heck, I don't know about it. I mean, it's not like we're that big out here, but if I don't drive that particular route, I don't know that there's some, developer coming in. And so that's why, by the way, to those out there, that's Richland County Council, that's Lexington County Council, that's Irmo Town Council. Those are the people that have the votes there. But I do appreciate them bringing it to my attention so I can be aware. But they're the ones that'll tell me things like, hey, Nathan, tuition's out of hand. When I didn't have college kids, tuition was just a buzzword to me. Once you start writing the checks, you realize it. And so I'm in banking. I do banking well, finance, mortgages. That's my wheelhouse. But education, healthcare, law enforcement, any of those things, I need to be talking to the real people out there. I appreciate your comments. I try to get out and about as much as I can. Everybody knows I'm responsive. One of the things, if you send me an email at the State House, you get an automatic reply that just asks you to put constituent in the subject line. And the reason is because even though there's only 40 or 50,000 people in Irmo Chapin that can vote for me, I represent 5 million people in the state. So we get emails from all over. I want to make sure I'm representing and listening to my guys first. If Irmo's thinking one way and Chapin's thinking one way, that beats how Charleston's thinking in my mind.
Absolutely.
So for people who haven't had the opportunity to meet you yet, and now that they're listening to the podcast, they want to follow you a little bit closer in your politics. I know that you have Nathan's News, and I get that email, and I'm always excited to read about it. Could you share with people how they're able to follow your political career and keep up with what's going on within the area of Irmo and Chapin?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the plug there. Nathan's News, NATHANSNEWS.com. Those posts are all written by me or either I'll cut and paste if it's an article from the Irmo News I want to share, the state. I'm on Twitter, and it's simply at Nathan Ballentine without the E at the end. I'm on Facebook. It's Nathan Ballentine. And I got on Instagram, 4 months ago. Somebody asked me why I wasn't on Instagram. I said, well, I wasn't a college girl, or isn't that what Instagram's about? And then I learned that successful business people do it. You have influencer out there and all that. So I still remember 20-something years ago when I got elected, Twitter was literally just coming along. And one of my consultants said, you need to get on there. I was like, why? I was like, who cares what I'm doing or what I'm going to go eat? He said, Nathan, you're a public figure. People care. So I do. Y'all, I love what I do. I love mortgages. I love working with people. I love leading a team that I have here. I'm responsible for movement here in Lexington and Richland, also Sumter and Florence. I've just been blessed in life to work with great people, David, with people like you that are making things happen here locally at the Irmo Chamber, and George as well, heavily involved. I still can't believe you're in college and juggling everything you do with football and real estate and grades, and great family. I love representing y'all. And, I was just up in Nashville. I'm a big Gamecock fan, and lo and behold, sitting behind me, somebody was like, aren't you Nathan Ballentine? I was like, yes, sir. And turns out it's J. Martin, which used to be Chip Huggins' constituent. But I said, hey, you're Irmo Chapin. You can call me anytime.
Well, so one last political question. We elect our governor in the bi-years between
Yep.
presidential elections. Um, Governor McMaster's been now will be South Carolina's longest serving governor at the end of his term. Um, any information about how you see our governor's race shaping up? Because people, they've got big shoes to fill after someone like him, like a Governor McMaster who served for so long. So what do you think that race is going to look like for us? And do you think we've got, good people in the wings waiting to, vie for his office?
There's plenty of people in this state. There's plenty of people, David. I tell people all the time, you don't have to have a title to be a leader in this state. Whether it's chamber, Rotary, church, homeowners association. I mean, just being involved. You don't have to be president. You don't have to be board member. But certainly we have people in office that I'm sure are looking at that. I'd heard rumors that Tim Scott would maybe come back one day and run for governor. I think I've heard Alan Wilson may be interested. I would imagine our current Lieutenant Governor, Pamela Evett, would be interested as well. Henry, it's monumental. He finished out Nikki, Governor Haley's two years of her term, and then he served the 2 terms maximum. So he's going to be the only governor that served for a decade in South Carolina, and he's had a tremendous record. And I think, having served with Sanford before him, and obviously my friend Nikki, one difference with Henry, right or wrong, I think on the right side of thing is, he works to bring consensus together. And unfortunately, I think lately in this day and age, that's the killer of politics. I said I'm a Carolina fan. Well, if you're a Clemson fan, that doesn't mean I think you're an idiot. That just means I don't like your team, So I'm still going to talk with you. But unfortunately, in politics, you've got Republicans and Democrats, or you got people from the city versus the country, or people from the coast versus the upstate who are always fighting. And instead of looking at the 8 things that we might agree on, we're focused on the 2 things we don't. And sometimes that happens inside our own party, and we just eat our own self, and it's very destructive. Henry has done a good job of working with the House and the Senate, which then businesses from outside the state see the environment, they see the political environment, the business environment, and they see all the natural resources that we have. And that's why people are coming. That's why they don't need to be worried about rates being 6% or 7%, or even if they get down to 5%. When David, you or George, when y'all find them that house and tell them, hey, we need to make an offer, they need to just do that. They'll always have a chance to refi later. I mean, everybody thinks, I have a 30-year fixed on this house, and I might not be here 30 years. Who knows? But get an adjustable rate if you want to, but just let somebody that you trust that has good values and knows the community like y'all two do. Find somebody like that if you're out there looking for a house. Let them find it. And then as long as it fits in your budget with the payment, don't worry about what the rate is. You can refinance later on.
Sounds great. George, you got any further questions for Nathan today?
No. I was going to ask him if he was going to run for governor, but he didn't plug himself in there, so I'll hold back on that.
I'm fine right here with Irmo, Chapin, Dutch Fork. Great. Hey, we got great football teams out here. Dutch Fork, Irmo had a big battle just recently here, and I think Chapin might be going to the playoffs. And George, good luck. Y'all got to win 2 more, I think.
Yes, sir. Yeah. No, I brought down a few of my friends to the Irmo Dutch Fork game this past weekend, and
nice.
I've been because I played at Dutch Fork. I've been to a lot of Dutch Fork games, but the crowd there, it's nice to see that Irmo's playing good football again. Just how many people in the community came out for it.
Yep. Anybody? Hey, plug for you guys. Anybody looking to buy a house out here in the Irmo, Chapin, Dutch Fork area? Lake Murray, frankly, anywhere in South Carolina, these are the 2 guys right here, the Cola guys. Give them a call.
Well, thank you, Nathan. We, again, appreciate you, giving 20 years of your life to public service here at the state. And thank you for your leadership and, in the real estate industry as well. So, and thank you for your time today just to sit down with us and talk through all this. So we'll wrap it up and just leave it there. And hopefully maybe we'll have you back on in the near future to, maybe talk about the end of the legislative session, and hopefully you get accomplished everything you want to.
Sounds great. Hey, congratulations on y'all's success, guys.
Thank you so much.
Is sponsored by Bell Carrington, Price and Gregg. Bell Carrington is our choice for the best real estate attorneys in town. They are highly communicative and make sure that the closing process is as smooth as possible. With offices in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama, they can handle any of your real estate finance, eminent domain, financial services litigation, and litigation needs. Call their Columbia SC office today at 803-509-5078.